Hey, Sanus. Wait for a few people to tune in as always, and then we'll get into it. Hey, guys. Hope you're all going well. Had a good week. Getting ready for Saturday against Sydney. Teams have just come out. If you haven't seen them, we'll go through them shortly. Let me know what you think. They're pretty straightforward. Pretty much what I was expecting, to be honest. Yep, a few people happy already. Just reading through the comments, guys. Pretty good, Malik. Not too bad. Hope you're going well as well. Jason's pretty happy that we've got no oldies coming in this week. We're going with a youngster, which is good. Yeah, might as well get stuck into it. Won't keep you guys too long. Let's get into the teams. We'll go through the lineup. So, Hunter Clark is fit. I honestly didn't expect him to get up this week. I thought it was going to be definitely a 2-weeker, but good to see that he's back. Sad news that Tom Highmore has been omitted. I think I called it in the podcast. We talked about the ins and outs on the Tuesday podcast, and my tip was Tom Highmore, and that wasn't because of form. It wasn't because of anything like that. It was just that I knew we weren't going to drop Claverino after his debut. You're not going to give him one game against North and then not let him back it up against Sydney. It just doesn't make sense, and it's not good for a youngster's confidence to drop them immediately after their first game. And Caulfield just looked like he was getting a bit of confidence back last week. He wasn't at his absolute best, but you could tell that he was trying to get himself going. When he got the ball, he tried to take on the opponent, and he tried to use his raking right foot and hit targets. Whereas in previous weeks before he was dropped, he was just very reluctant to even want the ball and even try and do anything risky with the ball. So Caulfield's at his best when he's taking risks, and he was doing that a bit more last week. Hopefully we just see a bit more of a gradual improvement on Saturday and then for the future weeks. But that's why I thought Highmore was going to be dropped. It was just that we had too many of the same type. We're not going to go into this game with Claverino, Caulfield and Highmore. It just wouldn't have made sense. And so I think it's more just a needs-based decision. It was just we had too many intercept marking types in the back half. So I think he's just omitted because of that. I think Jack Loney, I think he was the emergency last week, wasn't he? I don't think he actually got onto the park, but he's omitted as well, so he's dropped into the emergencies. What's interesting is that Jack Bytel isn't even in the emergencies, I don't think, so I'm not sure why. We've got Highmore, Loney, Ben Long, and Paul Hunter in the emergencies, so interesting there that Jack Bytel, who I think's had a pretty decent first year of actually just consistent football, he's been good, and midfield's always been a bit of an issue for us. So it's surprising that really in the emergencies we've got an intercepting mark, a defender, Jack Loney a small forward, Ben Long another kind of half-back flanker, and then Paul Hunter ruckman. No mids in the emergencies, so that's a bit risky. Bytel I feel like has the type of game that would suit playing a contested team like Sydney. They've obviously got Heaney that goes through there. They've got Luke Parker. Obviously, Kennedy's very good and has been for a long time. They've got those bigger bodies there. They've got a bit more outside now. So that's what we've seen with Sydney this year is they want to take the game on. They want to go through the guts. And that's mainly because of the enthusiasm, all of these youngsters that they've got through the team now. And they've all just taken the league by storm. They've just brought in Logan McDonald that's going to make our job even harder. He's a good young tall forward and he's going to compete for the ball every time it comes into the 50. Franklin there as well. Papley in the forward line. Heaney's been playing forward a bit more and he's been getting a lot of the ball but kicking some goals and very damaging there. Sam Wicks has been good and Will Hayward, Florence. They've got a pretty settled team, Sydney. So they're in, not that it really matters to us, but the big one for me, they brought in Armity, McDonald, Fox, but the big one is Tom Hickey. I would have thought, if we go into this game and they don't have Tom Hickey and we've got Paddy at our disposal, that bridges the gap between us winning and us losing big time. That puts us almost in the box seat to really go full throttle at this game. I don't know whether they've rushed Hickey or not, because he was, I think, another 1 to 2 weeks on their injury list earlier in the week, but now they've brought him in, which is interesting. So I think they genuinely are worried about Paddy. So it looks like they've brought him in just to negate Paddy, because the rest of the ground you look at, it's pretty even. Their forward line's a bit of a worry for me, because our back line's been a bit leaky this season. Their back line, on the other hand, they've got Hewitt, Rampy, Fox, Dawson, McCartan and Lloyd. And I talked about this on the podcast with Marshy and Joycey, but not one of them is taller than 6'3" in that back line. That's a short back line. That's one of the shortest back lines in the competition. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that some of the teams that have gotten close to beating them or have beaten them this year are teams that have tall forwards. And I know that the Gold Coast exploited them big time with Ben King. Whether we can somehow do that with Max King, Paddy Ryder going down there for spells. Battles played a bit more forward last week, and I really like that. So if he sticks there, we've got the likes of Membry, King, Battle, Ryder. There's some talls there that can do some damage. And not to mention Mason Wood, who played well last week against a pretty average team, kicked his 3 goals, but he regains his spot, and he gives us a bit more grunt, and he can take a mark as well. So we've got a bit of height in that forward line, more than Sydney. They've really got Franklin and McDonald that they rely on, and obviously McInerney, or whatever his name is, will go down there when he can. But I think across the ground, we're probably the taller team. So I don't know what the weather's going to be like in Sydney on Saturday. It's probably going to be okay. But if it's a nice dry day, that's where we can beat them. We need to start taking marks, especially inside 50. We haven't done that since the Geelong game a couple of weeks ago, where we lowered our eyes, we kicked it to leads. Even when we bombed it, our talls were clunking them or bringing them to ground, and our smalls were getting a bit of the ball in that game as well. Last week, our talls weren't our strength. We got a lot of goals from just kind of running and free-flowing football. Membry took a few marks. King obviously couldn't get much of the ball. Battle took a few marks but couldn't kick straight. And Paddy, I don't think he hit the scoreboard either. So this is a game where our talls need to stand up. The midfield battle is even. I genuinely would have said it was in our favour if Hickey hadn't have put his hand up to play, but now it's dead even. They've got some very good campaigners in there. They've got Luke Parker and Kennedy who have been there and they've done that, but they're very inside. They're not outside. Then you've got Heaney who will rotate through there. He's very contested, but he can get the ball on the outside. Mills, very disciplined and very good player. So they're more inside. I think where we can get them is in the air and on the outside. They've got the grunt. They're number 1 in the AFL for tackles, so there's no surprise there. They're also, I think, number 4 for inside 50s, so our midfield's got to be on. Let's face it, our midfield needs to pressure them that much that if the ball's getting into our D50, that it's not in a position where Franklin's on the move or McDonald's on the move and it's coming in ugly. Because if how many times, guys, have we been dominated by Sydney and Franklin kicking our ass? I can't remember many games where Franklin hasn't kicked 3 or 4 and been close to man of the match. This is a game where I don't think he played against us last year when we beat them. But out of the last 14 times we've played Sydney, we've won twice. Once in the last 9 years. So they're one of our big bogey teams. We overcame them last year and we smashed them. But they're a different sort of team this year. They're very, very confident. They're very enthusiastic and they love kicking goals. It's on us. We know what Sydney are going to bring. We know that every year what they're going to bring. This year they're bringing a bit more scoreboard pressure than a lot of other teams, and it's kind of un-Sydney-like, where we're so used to them being contested and low scoring and just getting the job done week in, week out. But this year they're just a bit faster. They go through the guts more than any other team. So like I said, our midfield needs to be switched on, because if it's not, we're in trouble. We know how quickly we can put our heads down, but the more I think about this game, the more it is genuinely, to me, the most important game of the round and the most important game of our season. Because last week, we all felt it, didn't we? We played North, we got the chocolates, but put them to the sword. We just kind of went through the motions as if we knew that this wasn't exciting. There was no crowd at Marvel. We were against a shit team. No offense to North, but they're bottom of the ladder for a reason. We got enough of a win and we just didn't look enthusiastic about it. And to be honest, even if we had thumped them, I'm the sort of guy that I love when we win, but I'm very up and about when we beat a good team around us on the ladder or above us on the ladder. I'm not that excited even if we smash teams below us, because that's what I expect from us. I expected us to win by a lot more last week, but we won anyway. But this is a game where if we win this, and I don't want to get anyone's hopes up, but we win this, we can go to 6-6. Rowan Marshall's already jogging. Zach Jones is jogging. Dan Hanbury was in serious training today. He was working his ass off. We can get 3 starting 18 players back within the next 3 to 4 weeks. We have Adelaide next week, who we should beat if we play well. And then we have the bye. To go into the bye at 7-6 with those players coming back off the back of some important wins, we just have to grind it out. Even if it's like last week where we don't play our best, but we do enough to beat Sydney and to beat Adelaide, that's what we want. But we do have to be better than last week. That's absolutely for sure. Sydney are going to know that we're the sort of team this year, or from evidence of previous games this year, that when teams bring the heat, that we crack. And Sydney would know that. They'll go, just bring the heat, boys. Saints will crack. But it's up to us to not crack. It's up to us to bring the heat, to match their heat and to beat it. If we get it inside 50 enough times, just from what I read out before with the back line, I think we can get their backline. They know they can get our backline, but I think we can get theirs too. So this could well be a shootout. It could be a very high-scoring game. If it is, I don't know how our chances will go because we haven't really kicked that many goals this year compared to Sydney. But Sydney are prone to the odd blowout loss. They've had 4 losses this year. The first one was to the Giants by 2 points. Then they lost to the D's. Then they got smashed by the Suns in round 6 by 40 points. And then that was the week before we played the Suns. So we went up there and then beat that same team. And then they lost to the Dockers by 2 points. So they're prone. They've lost to the Dockers, who are okay, but not flying. They've lost to the D's, who are obviously very good. The Suns, up and down, but got spanked by them. And to the Giants, who up and down, and they've been spanked a few times this year. And we've beaten the Giants as well. So this, to me, is a bit closer than what the odds suggest. But Sydney are prone to the odd loss. And they're very reliant on their backmen. They're very reliant on Lloyd, on Mills, and obviously Josh Kennedy and Luke Parker. But I think we're a big shout in this game. I know last week wasn't great evidence and we didn't play that well. But I just feel like we've gone to Sydney today. So we're not doing the day before like we've done. We've embraced the away trip. We've hopped on the bus today. We've flown over. We're there already. We're going to be bonding all Friday, game day Saturday. So we've got 2 nights there before the game where we can really talk about the game, become mates again, and create that hub vibe that we don't know what's going to happen leading into the Cairns game and then the buy-in after that. But I think this is a really important away trip for us. And our form away from home has been better than our form at home. We've won... How many games this year? We've won, 5 or 6? And yeah, we've I'm trying to remember what our win-loss is. 5 and 6, I think, at the moment. Brain fade, but our form's been okay. We beat the Giants away from home. We beat the Suns. We got spanked by Port. But I feel like compared to the home losses, the away games, we haven't been absolutely thumped. We got smashed by Port, but the other 2 we won. So the 100 points and 50, 60, 70 point losses have all come under the roof at Marvel where we thought we were going to be a force to be reckoned with. So I think it's come at a good time. Jack Steele said it during the week that they're excited about it. They still believe they are going to make finals. So I love that belief. Whether that's across the whole team, I don't know. But Jack Steele has set that goal, has set that message. So I love that we've still, despite what the admin have said about 2022 being a year that we're challenging, Jack Steele said, no, this year we want to make finals and we've got 2 winnable games. So the fact that he said that as well has put the onus on the team that, he expects a lot from us, and hopefully we know what he's going to bring, but we need to know what everyone else is going to bring. So the Brad Hills, the Max Kings, the Battles, the Butlers need to lift. These guys need to have big games, almost season best type games for us to win. And hopefully if that happens, we're good enough to win the game. But that's kind of my take on it, guys. I'm going into this way more enthusiastic than the North game. The North game, either way, to me was going to be kind of a shallow feeling. We beat them and beat them by a lot, and it's North, and we don't read too much into it. We beat them and we don't beat them, and we all, kind of get a bit upset that we didn't smash them, and that's exactly what happened. So either way, to me, the North game was just one that we needed to win by a lot or by not, and move on quickly. And now, hopefully, the boys all week have been focusing on Sydney, and we can go up there and put on a performance and make all the supporters that are watching in isolation, in lockdown around the country, proud. So I'm going to go through some of these comments now. Thanks to everyone for commenting. Radley said Tom Hickey somehow has worked himself into being one of the top rucks this year. Yep, credit to Hickey. It's his fourth club. So he's had to work for it. He's had to decide to change, to go to different clubs to get those opportunities. But even with us, I always thought he had some potential. He was a bit prone to the odd brain fart on field, but he had some big games, and he always showed some serious mobility for a forward. He'd be able to pick the ball off the deck and, juke it with one hand. And he had a very weird kicking action, but it was fairly accurate and a decent field kick as well. He just hadn't put it all together in a consistent period of time, and he's done it with Sydney. So credit to him. I hope he has a shocking game on Saturday and he doesn't have any impact on the game. But obviously him being in the team is going to lift Sydney's mids a little bit, and is going to put Paddy Ryder on notice, and he's going to have to work for it as well. He had a big game last week, and that was against Todd Goldstein, but he's going to have another big game against a potential All-Australian ruckman. That's how good Tom Hickey's going. So if Paddy wins that battle, I dare say that goes a long way to deciding who wins the game. Taylor's asking, how is Butler still in the side? Bring in Clark, drop Butler, leave Highmore back, play Clark around the ball, and Billings closer to goal. That's a good question. It's his birthday today, so I don't want to be too mean on him. Happy 25th to Dan Butler, but I guess it's just more the fact that maybe the team decided to drop Lonie. They didn't want to drop too many smalls. If we drop Butler, then we're only really left with Higgins as a small, and I don't think that's really the way we want to go. We've played our best football with two smalls in the team. Even if one of them's playing well and one's kind of quiet, it just kind of works a bit better than the three. And then I don't think we've really tried the one small for a long time, but I think it's really his final shout. If he doesn't perform this week, it's going to be a big test to see if he can last training next week and get selected. But I think it's more to do with depth and the fact that Lonie hasn't really staked his claim in the side as yet. If Lonie was playing really well and Butler was playing the way he is, I don't think Butler's playing. But because Lonie, he's not hitting the scoreboard just like Butler, and he doesn't have the runs on the board. He didn't have a season like Butler did last year, and I think that's saving Butler a lot this year. Butler didn't have the season he did last year, where he should have been All-Australian. I don't think he probably is in the team this week, but clearly Rats is more on the side of playing players into form and not dropping them. Also, we have to remember that I don't think there's any VFL because of COVID and everything going on in Victoria. So dropping him means he doesn't play any football this week, and that's a risk if you want to bring him back the week after. So I think, we've only gone with dropping a player that was included last week that didn't really play, and then dropping a small that hasn't really impacted the side much this year, and bringing in, obviously, a starting 18 mid in Hunter Clark, and he's coming off a minor injury. So I think it's fairly straightforward. When you talk about it like that and the situation in Victoria with COVID, that's probably why he's playing on the weekend. Thomas is Sydney are well coached, are directed. I don't know who that is, needs to really show some serious leadership. Brett Ratton needs to really show some serious leadership this week because our boys can win with some real challenging opposition. Like I said, exactly right, mate. If we win this game, the belief will be back. I thought it was back when we beat West Coast, and we've beaten some teams along the way, but this would genuinely be a scalp. beating Sydney. They're in the top 8. They if they win this, they'll be borderline top 4. They'd be 8-4, I think, after 12. The difference is then if we win, we go 6-6 after 12 with a chance to go 7-6 against Adelaide. Massive confidence booster. Away from home, we bond. We fly back, towards Cairns the week after, or wherever we play that game. Hopefully know that our season's back on track. So this game is, like I said, I think our most important for the year. So if we don't bring the intensity at all, and we just serve the same shit that we've served for 7 or 8 games already this year, I'd be very disappointed, but I'm expecting us to turn this on and to have a big crack at beating Sydney. Ali says, hopefully kicking will be 100% better. It needs to be. Exactly right. Last week's, we kicked 12-16 last week, and we obviously know what happened against Geelong. But if we kick straight last week, the scoreboard takes care of itself. If we kick straight against Geelong, the scoreboard takes care of itself, and we win that game. We'd be going into this game at probably 7-5 or something like that for a chance to go 8-5, which would be huge. But yeah, bad kicking's bad football, and we've known that very well with St Kilda for a number of years. The last 5 years, we were second in goal kicking last year, but prior to that, it was 16, 17, 17, 18, and bottom of the goal kicking tree. And this year right now, we're second last, Fremantle being last. So if we kick straight on the weekend, that'll help us big time. If we don't, geez, I better hope we have a lot of shots on goal, because we'll need them to stay with Sydney, that's for sure. Paul says we can match them, Jakey. Kick straight, take our chances early. We should win big game to keep in touch and potentially get in the top 8. I don't know what the ladder is exactly right now, but I'd be very interested to see if we win this game, where would we go on the ladder? If we win, we would be equal 8th. We'd be equal 7th with West Coast and Richmond, pending percentage and obviously their games playing out, but not bad. Fremantle on 20 points, GWS are on 20, Essendon are on 20, Sydney are on 28, so they're 2 games ahead. This would really, it wouldn't get us into the 8, but it keeps us in that middle pack that are fighting for the 6 to 8 position. 5 and up, it's probably a stretch to catch a team like Port, but Sydney are the next level down in 6th, and we're all the way down in 12th, but it's only 2 games splitting us up. So this is a really big game in terms of season, in terms of the ladder and confidence. So fully expecting our boys to treat it like a final, and so they should. And hopefully we can, just like last year in the finals, get the win in the first week. The last time St Kilda won in Sydney was 2012. That's from Marcus. Good stat. I forget that last year we beat them pretty comprehensively. I think it was by over 40 or 50 points. But that was at the Gabba. So, yeah, it's been a long time since 2012. A lot of football's played out. To think we haven't beaten them in Sydney there since 2012 is unreal. To be honest, I think we've played them in Marvel probably a lot as well in that time. And they've taken care of us pretty much anywhere we've played them. So, I think it's a good choice that we've swapped the home game this week and we didn't try to get it in Cairns, because I just love that it's going to be backs against the walls, away from home, at a ground that suits Sydney, but I think it'll suit us too. SCG is quite small. This will mean it's very contested. It'll mean that one kick and we're in the 50. So I think it might actually help us get our free-flowing game plan going, and hopefully Saints footy of 2020 comes back and is on fire on Saturday. Aiden says, I'm really worried about Buddy. How do you think we're going to stop him? Look, that's a very good question. Let's have a look at the lineups again. Let's look at the back line. Clavanera is obviously not going to go to him. Dougal Howard, probably the one that would go to Buddy, although Buddy's so mobile, but Dukes out of everyone in that back line is the most mobile. Cal Wilkie, you're not going to consider Cal Wilkie unless things are going nuts on Dukes and you've got to make some changes. But I'd say Cal Wilkie probably takes, someone like a McDonald or even a Heaney that drops there, and then maybe Clavanero can go on a McDonald. McDonald's young. He's only in his first year of football. He's very good, but he's still very raw. And then you've got Clavanero is playing his second game. So I think that's probably an easy pick. Have Clav on McDonald. Then you've got Dukes on Franklin. And Kel Wilkie or even Jimmy Webster on someone like Heaney when he rests forward as well. So I think that's probably what we're going to do. But I think it's going to be very important that our mids defend as hard as our actual defence itself, because yeah, Sydney love to go through the middle. If we can clog that up, slow that down, possess the ball even, keep it off them, then that'll mess with them a little bit. I just want us to, most weeks we always see teams play to their strengths against us and we just struggle to contain it. I want us to play to our strengths, but I want us to be smart enough to negate their strengths. You know, most weeks, most times where we've been smashed this year, it just looks like we're too focused on ourselves and not focused enough on stopping the opposition. I'd love for us to have put in the work this week because we know what we're going to get from Sydney. It's dead obvious. They're going to go, you know, wide, try and get it into middle, and then go long to Buddy and McDonald, and then they've got the smalls with Papley there and Wicks and Heaney to feast off them. So if we clog up the middle, slow them down at half back where they're so good with Lloyd there and Rampy that generates so much drive from them. If we stop that, that'll go a massive way to helping us be more than competitive in this game. Expect Hill to play well. That's from Praz. Hopefully. You know, he had a tough one last week, was tagged out of the game, and, you know, I'm going to say now that even if he was tagged, I expect more from Brad Hill, but this is a game where I really think we need his drive. It's a small field. That means he can just run up and down all day long, just go wing to wing. Give it to him every time he's free, boys. Let him run, and forwards, get on your bike, lead to space, and he's going to hit you on the tip every time. Just lead. You know Brad Hill's going to get it to you. Marcus says, I reckon we won't beat them. They're too confident. We're still finding our feet. Nah. Fair point, Marcus. I know you're saying we're finding our feet. We've been out of form for most of the year. But it's round 12 now. We're more than halfway through the damn season. Enough of this finding our feet. Now is the time to find it in the first 10 minutes. Find your feet, know what's working, and go with it and take the game on and scare Sydney. I don't want us to, too many times this year, we've gone up against teams and within the first 10 minutes, we know what St Kilda we're going to dish up, what shitty football is going to be dished up, and we turn the channel and we're like, nah, this is crap. Last week it was similar to that, but we were winning, so it's okay. But I think, there's too many excuses flying around. This, to me, is a big one, and I'm fully expecting us to treat this like a final and to be very switched on from the outset. If we're not, I'll be very surprised. But, you know, I've been surprised watching Saints footy a lot this year and not in a good way. So hopefully this time I'm surprised in a positive way. David says we play every team back into form, it seems. Yeah, that's a fair point. Sydney's already in form, so I'm hoping we play them out of form if that's possible. Zach says, what do you think about our mid-season draft picks? Good question, not about the game, but happy to answer that. So we picked up Max Heath. That was the one that I wanted. We've got Paddy Ryder. We've got some good ruck stocks. Paul Hunter, McKernan, Alabakis, who's unproven, obviously. But we don't have another young ruck coming through with Rowan Marshall. And I think Max Heath is he was a bolter for last year's draft. Unlucky not to get picked. He's 204 centimetres. He's very competitive. He plays like Rowan Marshall. He said it himself in an interview that he models his game off Rowan Marshall. His hero is Nick Nat Nui. So, you know, for Ruckman to idolise Nick Nat but want to play like Rowan Marshall, and he has got a massive smile like Rowan Marshall, yeah, you take him on board. I think he's a great project for the next, 18 months. I think that's the contract that we got him on. And obviously then we've got Cooper Sharman, who's a forward. That was a bit of a surprise. I thought we'd go ruck, because Max Heath can play ruck and forward. But we've got another, Matty Allison type player, where he's skinny, he's a good mark, he's a good set shot. But he probably doesn't play much AFL this year or early next year. Max Heath looks like he's got the body to play this year if we absolutely need him, pending injuries. But most likely 2022 and onwards. I would have liked to have gone for another midfielder or even another tall young back, because we seem to be struggling. We've got a lot of intercept marks, but another tall young back that can back up Dukes if Dukes ever goes down would be handy. But yeah, no complaints with our with our mid-season draft picks. It was a bit sad that we didn't see Tyson Milne get picked up, or even Nathan Freeman get a second chance, but we saw Matty Parker get picked up by Richmond. So it raises questions again, our what's the team? We're trading players out for nothing, or delisting them even, and those players are good enough to go to the reigning premier. So it'll be interesting to see how good Matty Parker is for Richmond, but just a few question marks on why we got rid of some of these depth players. If a team like Richmond, who's won 3 out of the last 4 flags, think that he's good enough to be on their list and he's not good enough to be on ours for some reason. So all the best to Matty Parker, but yeah, a lot of players missed out, and happy with the ones we got. Membry will kick 5. That's from Paul. Mate, I hope you're right. 5 goals, by the way, not 5 points. Just to clarify there. Sportsbet gave us a 43% chance of making the 8. Look, that's actually higher than I would have given us right now. If we win on the weekend, it goes up to about 50%. If we beat Adelaide, then it goes up even higher. So every week is critical now. We can't afford to lose more than another 3 or 4 games for the rest of the year if we really think we can make finals. Katie says, we need to not be negative and just focus on getting our boys across the winners line by the end of the game on Saturday. Good call. Too much of this season's been shit talking and negative, but I mean, it's been warranted most of the time. Last week, a lot of people were pretty upset that we didn't smash North and forgot that we even won the game. And to be honest, I was one of them. And even now looking back, I'm thinking maybe we just needed to be happy that we won. It's a working project. The team's going to get better. We should be supporting the boys. I can't imagine some of them in how they'd feel knowing that if they had have played well and we won, to go online and see some comments of people saying, well, we played shit, we deserve to be in the bottom 2, despite winning the game, So this week, hopefully, no matter the result, we can be proud of the performance the boys dish up. But realistically, we know that this is a gettable game and the next 2 are gettable. And Jack Steele said it himself, the next 2 are very winnable. So hopefully the boys do everything in their power to get us over the line. Dan says, if we can kick straight, then we should be a very good chance. I'm confident that Dukes can stay with Buddy and keep him quiet. Sark says, we need to be fast, or this will be a repeat of the Bombers earlier in the year. I don't know about that. I think that the Bombers were on fire in that game. Obviously, full respect to Sydney, they're very good and kicked a big score against Carlton last week. But if we take the game on, I think that they're the sort of team that might front run a little bit and think that it'll be easy. And if we can bring the pressure and go the other way, they're not going to want to go with us. So hopefully that's our approach. And we know that the way to win this game is to take it on, not to be slow, not to chip it around, because that's where turnovers happen. If we turn that ball over in the back half, like we've done a lot this year, just by chipping it around, they're going to cut us up. But if we go fast, play on instinct, get a lot of overlap running, so this is a game for Brad Hill and Jack Sinclair to get on their bikes constantly, then that's where I think we'll be at our best, and that gives us our best chance of winning. When is Marshall pulling the boots on? I'd reckon probably after the bye. Maybe next week. He was jogging today, which was great, but obviously not kicking the footy. I think next week he'll go into kicking the footy, and then we'll have the bye, and then he'll be back for the Richmond-Collingwood games right after the bye, which will be massive. Heaps of comments, guys. Thanks again. Jake, thoughts on Simon Lethlean? Yeah, I don't know. I was a big fan of him last year, but this year, just with some of the things he's saying, it just either it's his fault or something's going on in the club, but it just seems like there's a bit of mixed messaging. Perfect example is the members email that we got from President Bassett last week, and what he said about 21 and 22 and when we're realistically challenging, and then what Lethlean said a few days prior that kind of contradicted it. So it's a bit, I just don't know what his messaging was and what it meant. I think he needs to clarify that. I mean, some people are a bit iffy because he's been a bit involved in list management, and the list has been very heavily talked about in a negative light because of our performances, but it's hard to judge whether that's correct and our list is in a bit of a precarious position, or it's all because of form and we're just kind of overreacting. So until the end of this year, I don't really know. I couldn't really answer that question. I think he's been good in his negotiations to get some of these recruits over the line, but whether they were the right recruits at the time, I don't know. But he's clearly, good at what he does in terms of connecting players and getting players interested in St Kilda. He looks ruthless, and I think that's a good edge that we have. I feel like we're not ruthless enough when it comes to negotiations and just as a club in general. And you look at last week's game against North, we weren't ruthless, and I think more people like him around might help. But I know he's got his critics as well, and yeah. It is what it is. He's not going to be going anywhere anytime soon, I don't think. Thanks, Neil. Yeah, Al got a bit impatient there about the question. I'm trying to get to as many as I can. I know some people, even last week, someone messaged me and saying, Jakey, why'd you ignore my comment, mate? You ignore my comments all the time. Do you not like me? It's like, no, sorry, there's hundreds that come through, and for some reason it just keeps kind of filtering through, so it keeps moving. I can't read all of them because as I'm reading them, it goes to the next one. So it's not really the great user experience on the laptop, but I try to do as best as I can. Marcus says, should Grant Thomas be list manager? He knew how to make things happen. That's an interesting point. You bring up Grant Thomas. I don't think, obviously not, but a lot of people were a bit upset that I even messaged him on Twitter and asked him about the Max King, Matthew Lloyd situation. I thought it was a good person to ask because, despite a lot of people not liking Grant Thomas and calling him irrelevant, he speaks to the truth, and he created the bond. He created the young bond with the Nick Rios, the Cozzies, the Lenny Hayes, the Aaron Hamills. He brought in Fraser Gehrig and these sort of guys. He built the nucleus of what Ross Lyon took to grand finals. There's no, a lot of players have said that if it wasn't for Grant Thomas, the teams wouldn't have made grand finals. He set up that connection, and that's why I messaged him. He's not going to be list manager. He's not going to be anything at St Kilda, obviously, anytime soon. But for people that thought it was a bit odd that I messaged him, I think he's interested in coming on the podcast to have a chat, so that'll be exciting. And I just wanted to start a dialogue with a person that's been at St Kilda. He's brought success. He set up the most exciting football we've played in a long time, in the 04 to kind of 05, 6 kind of years. But yeah, Grant Thomas is obviously a personality that's kind of brings a lot of mixed opinions in the Saints culture. I might leave it there, guys. Thanks for the comments. I'll quickly go through any that I've missed in case there's any that are decent. Michael's asking, do I think we still have a chance to make the top 8? I answered this in the podcast, but I'll answer it again for you, Michael. Absolutely. We're only one game and a bit of percentage out of the 8. The next 2 weeks, if we win the next 2 weeks, I'm going to call it now, we make finals. If we don't win in the next 2 weeks and we lose both, obviously season done. If we win one of the next 2, it puts us at probably a 30-70 chance of making finals. We'd need a massive second half of the year, and we'd need to get Marshall and Jones and Hanbury and all those guys back ASAP. But if we win the next 2 and we go into the bye knowing those injured players are coming back, then I think we're in the box seat to really take on 8th and 7th position. And we play Sydney twice, so that could be the decider there. Win this time and then beat them a second time. Go 2-0 against the team above us and in the 8, and we take their position in the 8. So it starts on Saturday, but we can't get ahead of ourselves, obviously, because we're not even close to deserving that position in the 8. But I think we're a big chance if we win the next 2, that's for sure. Yeah, I might leave it on that good note. Thanks for the comments, everyone. I appreciate you watching the preview. It's a big game on Saturday. I'm hoping everyone gets a chance to watch it. Hopefully you're not too busy and you get to put on the Saints colours and watch it from home or with some mates if you're not in Victoria and cheer on the boys. It's a massive test. It's actually good that it's an early Saturday game. I'm kind of sick of waiting all day for these Saturday twilight, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night games. So I'm pretty keen to get up, have some lunch, go for a run, and then come back and watch some good Saints footy. So until then, guys, Thanks a lot for watching. If you haven't listened to the podcast, as I always mention, it's out on Tuesday nights. Hit it up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere. It's also on saintstv.com.au. You can hit it up there as well. And I'll be back after the game on Saturday, Arvo, to dissect hopefully a really good performance against the Sydney Swans. But until then, enjoy the rest of your Thursday nights and your Fridays, and I'll see you on Saturday after the game. Thanks, guys. Go Saints.